Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Please check out the KCC Discord linked in the description down below. There you can talk to me and a whole bunch of KCC fans who hang out there on a regular basis. I look forward to seeing you there. Our first story today comes to us from Deshandi. New dress code for the IT department of one person. Let's jump right in. Not my story, written for dramatic effect but not exaggerated or fabricated. The backstory. Father-in-law works for a heavy equipment manufacturer. Highway making equipment, machines for gold and gem mining, etc. These machines aren't really relevant to the story, only that they're big and scary enough that everyone is very strict about safety. Well, almost everyone. This company has one IT guy. He does everything from web admin to the ID badges to the printer isn't working, so obviously he needs an office with a computer. Only problem is, most of his job is keeping the ancient assembly line machines on life support, so he's constantly on the factory floor fixing error code TI-86 on machine C137, etc. The problem. One day, one of the VPs of butt kissing deigns to leave the plush veneer of the C-level suites to enter the plebeian office, and takes great offense to the IT guy wearing jeans, boots, and a high-vis vest in their strictly suit and tie office. Protests about his job duties fall on deaf ears, and since the IT department of one person doesn't have an official C-level office, VP of butt kissing decides to write a new dress code for the IT department. Suit and tie at all times. No exceptions. IT guy shows up the next day in a suit and tie, tries to fix an error on the factory floor, and, rightfully, gets turned away at the door for lack of safety gear. He spends a few days in his office goofing off while the errors on the factory floor grow and grow. The fallout. Finally, around 3 a.m. one night, big production line X goes down. This is a huge contract for the company. The company might go under if this client goes elsewhere. As such, emergency procedures state all C-level execs and even the owner must be notified immediately if this line stops at any time for any reason. So the upper echelon of the company, including VP Buttkisser, assembles in the boardroom to prepare for their firing spree. Around 5 a.m., IT guy is ordered to the boardroom where they really lay into him before they fire him. Threats of blacklisting him in the industry, threats of lawsuits for damages, etc. Of course, there's the condescending, "Now what do you have to say for yourself?" question. The mic drop. He unfolds a few pieces of paper from his pocket and puts them on the table in front of the owner. "This is why I have to wear a suit and tie no matter what. This was my objection because I have to do my job properly. This is the safety officer refusing me entry for lack of safety gear, and this is the record that VP Buttkisser got my emails but never responded." Not a pin drop or cricket chirp could be heard, just the faint ruffling of pages as the owner read. Finally, he spoke. "Your so-called dress code is officially revoked. VP Buttkisser is no longer allowed to have any authority over you. Please put on safety gear and fix machine TK421. The rest of us will stay here all day until I'm convinced that this problem will never happen again." VP Buttkisser kept his job. He was very good at his namesake after all. But he was transferred to VP of a division that didn't exist and a workforce of one, only him. Rumor has it he's related to the owner somehow, but at least his self-righteousness can't ruin the actual work being done. I was really disappointed that VP Buttkisser didn't get fired, but I guess it's pretty much the same when you're just relegated to the position of VP in charge of making sure this wall over here exists. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. This next story comes to us from Aramaref. Your working hours are non-negotiable, even though I agreed. Let's jump right in. This happened a couple years ago, but I think of it often, so I thought I'd share. Backstory. I got hired as support and IT business development with ERP related issues for all 3 shifts, but I can't be at the facility 24/7. Story. I decided to augment my workday schedule by 2 to 3 hours on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Wednesdays and Fridays, I had evening appointments that I couldn't miss. I spoke with my manager, who agreed and actually said, "You're an adult, you don't need my permission." Awesome. So I started. Augmented days started between 9:30 and 11:30, depending on the production schedule for that day and on morning meetings, and ended later than the rest of the office personnel according to the time started. All was going well for a solid 5 months, including preventing a catastrophic ERP failure that would have caused second shift to be unable to report finished goods produced and raw materials consumed, which has, historically, created thousands of dollars of false scrap and hundreds of man-hours fixing it. Suddenly one night, around 2100 hours, I get an email from my manager to his entire staff, saying how he's been very disappointed that some people get to work so late, how all office employees must start work no later than 8:30, no exceptions, and so on. Knowing that him and I have talked about this and he gave me permission, I don't act on it. A couple weeks later, the CIO calls me on my way to work around 9:15 and tells me that my manager asked corporate to fix my compliance. I explained to him everything that has happened, including how the manager approved it. He sighs and tells me to just comply with the order. I tell him that second shift, who really begins heavy system usage at 1800 hours, won't have support and lines could go down. He said, "That's fine. Make sure you email manager, CC me, CEO, head of board, and CFO. Explain everything and ask manager if he still wants you to comply, considering lines would likely go down." So I did. The manager replies all and says that he does indeed want me to comply. Malicious compliance starting the next day. I arrive at work between 8 and 8:25 and leave exactly at 1700. I don't take lunch, so automatically I work nearly an hour over every day. About a week and a half rolls around and the lines stop. Second shift supervisor calls me around 18:30 and I answer. As the only support, I'm on call until 2200. We speak and I understand that this problem can only be fixed with me physically being there. I live about 40 minutes from work and am not required to come off hours. I have made that trip before, but this was before this situation. I tell the supervisor that there's nothing that I can do remotely and that I will fix the issue first thing in the following morning. I email everyone interested of the situation. Second shift shuts down early and third shift is cancelled. The next day I get there as usual around 8:15 and fix the issue and first shift can start production. The CIO calls me and asks me why my manager just filed a formal complaint against me, and I explain. Now, keep in mind, my manager can't file a complaint against me since he's my manager. He has to have a sit down with me in HR, but he didn't. Anyway, the CIO and I end the call with him telling me I did the right thing. I thought he was going to fire me. About 30-ish minutes later, the CEO calls me and tells me that he spoke with the CIO and he would like me to start augmenting my schedule again. I reminded him that my manager prohibited it, and he told me, "I don't care what he said, I'm giving you permission, and if he has a problem with it, he can call me." I thanked him and started augmenting again. Lines haven't been down overnight again because of this. Happy-ish ending, the manager was fired last year. I heard the other day that one of the major factors was the situation described above. I hate seeing people get fired, but I'm very glad he's not my manager anymore. My current manager is amazing. It really sounds in this case like the CIO knew that your manager was a bit of a douche and was using you to get rid of the manager because they needed cause. So in this story, I don't think OP was the only one that had some malicious compliance. This next story comes to us from Snarkomancer. You must help newly arrived patients. Let's jump right in. I practice as a licensed optician in Canada. Well, opticians are technically a healthcare profession and regulated similarly to nurses and pharmacists. Much of the jobs are glorified sales positions. Prior to moving into the lab side of the industry, that is the manufacture and finishing of prescription lenses, I worked for an independent optician's practice, first as a student and then when I first got my license. It was a largest practice with 2 doctors and a team of 4 opticians and 4 regular staff. The owner, one of the opticians, was a bit of a handful. See, she wasn't a particularly good optician, she knew very little about the profession or lens technologies, but she was unbelievably savvy business person and had kept her business afloat for over 2 decades. She had this cult-like following amongst the customers for a variety of reasons. First, at least 3/4 of our patients were from the same community and culture as her, sharing things like friends and language. Second, she did offer decent pricing, and on eyewear that can mean a lot of savings. Finally, she allegedly did things with their alleged health insurance that would allegedly be questionable legally. Allegedly. This opinion of my former boss created a very strange environment for the rest of the staff. It meant that a good portion of patients wouldn't actually interact with us, or in some cases speak to us at all. As one can imagine, this made for some awkwardness, and it also made doing our jobs difficult. You can't very well fit someone for eyewear if they actively refuse to speak to you. One day, we got a poor Google review that leveled a number of accusations against the practice, though not at my boss. And among them was a comment about not being properly greeted when they walked into the practice. As a rule, if you weren't with someone and the door opened, you offered a cheery hello. My boss flew into this rage, blasting her usual punching bag for some reason over this, and then turning on the rest of us. A new policy was instituted. No matter what, you must greet new arrivals. Later that week, I was fitting a patient with contact lenses, a type of paid appointment that has a maximum time limit of 90 minutes. They were a regular patient of our clinic, an existing contact lens patient, but were being fitted with a more fiddly type of lens called a multifocal, hence the hour and a half of chair time. The door to the practice opened, and I failed to greet the new arrival, though other staff did say hello. The new arrival, while waiting for their optometrist appointment, began to browse for new glasses without the help of any of us. At this moment, my boss stalked out of her office and snatched the file and pen out of my hands. "Go and help the customer." "But I have a patient." "No, you're going to help the customer." Patient, I'm really sorry. I'll be back." I left the patient sitting there while I approached the customer, who very firmly told me, after I had greeted, that they would not talk to me, only my boss. I shrugged and returned to my patient, angry and embarrassed. I decided to make my point. In the weeks following, every time anyone walked into the store, I stopped what I was doing and went to greet them. Unpacking orders? That can wait, someone's walked in. Cutting lenses on a rush job? That can wait, someone's walked in. Fitting a patient with glasses or dispensing purchased eyewear? These things can wait, someone's walked in. I was always extremely polite about it, and I always pretended, at least to the patients I would step away from, that it was a bit overwhelming, but like a good soldier, I was going to do my job. 9 out of 10 times the patients would shoo me away because they would only deal with my boss, and that was fine with me. I would be back doing my previous task in no time. Finally, a patient bought into my act and said something to my boss. I was worried it would be a complaint, something to the effect of, "Your staff member walked away from helping me when," but it wasn't. This patient told my boss that it seemed like all of the opticians were juggling too many people, and that I sounded more stressed than normal. Then came the magic words. An optician shouldn't have to stop what he is doing to run over to say hello to someone just to be told to go away while helping me. The following Monday, change was in the air. We had a new rule. Say hello to new arrivals and help them if you can. I left not too long after all this went down, moving to a better job, but the industry is small enough that I know all of that alleged stuff, well, let's just say someone's hands were allegedly red. I honestly think that the boss in this case took that negative review as a personal attack on her because she sees the business as an extension of herself. That led to the policy of greeting everybody as they come in and going to help them, when in reality it didn't really help the situation, it just made things a lot more difficult in that store. I can't comment too much on the illicit activities happening in that store, but OP, you know, if you're not working there anymore, you could always anonymously report that, just saying. This next story comes to us from Grappling Gigahertz. Manager complains about driving route, saves £5 a month, but costs the company £1,000. Let's jump right in. I had a job some years ago where I needed to visit a different customer's premises every day. There were many of us doing this job across several teams, and the expectation was that you drove using your own car and were paid a mileage rate. There were no company-provided cars. All was fine until I changed from one team to another, and new manager queried my first mileage claims submitted to them. The location of our office was on the edge of town, and to reach many of our customers, you could either drive on the main road to the next town, which got you there quickly and safely, or you could take some narrow country lanes which were a nightmare to drive through, so everyone obviously used the main road. But the manager had discovered the country lane route was 3/4 of a mile shorter, so 1.5 miles on a round trip. That made 60 pence difference to the mileage claim for each day. A visit to a customer took a whole day. The manager refused to authorize the claims for the main road route and insisted I resubmit with the lower mileage, as that was what the company rules said you could claim. Fine, no problem. The claim for the month was reduced by £5. But then I told them I was no longer going to use my car to drive to customers. Any customers anywhere. There was no obligation in the employment contract to do so. And being in the UK as a long-term employee, there was no way they could get rid of me. The issue was that our customers were not that far away at around 15 miles, but they were mainly in remote areas or on edge of town industrial estates, where there was no direct public transport. If you did try and use public transport, then a 30-minute journey turned into a 2-hour journey with all the connections, and a 1-day customer visit became a 2-day visit, so halving productivity. For the next month's claim, instead of paying about £8 a day in mileage, the company now had to pay for a rental car or taxi, both of which cost around £50 a day. My travel claims now went from around £160 a month to £1,000, all to save £5. After the first month, as the manager had a team of 10 all doing the same work, they initially spent an inordinate amount of time trying to allocate me customers that were on public transport routes. But then, my colleagues in the team, who had also been taken to task by the manager over the same mileage issue and other matters as well, as they could be irritatingly pedantic about many things, saw what was going on and also started to refuse to use their own cars. Eventually, after some months, senior management had to step in when they saw how their travel budget was being exhausted and decreed that people could claim for the sensible route. Most went back to driving, but some of us remained using taxis and rental cars, as there was still no contractual obligation to use your own car. Ah yes, OP really drove the point home to the manager, and I'm guessing it was getting quite tiresome to the manager after a while. I'm glad in the end they were able to take the best route possible and get everybody back rolling. Check out all 4 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.